Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. In this video I'll be showcasing my Lightning Storm Druid. I got to World Tier 3 and World Tier 4 very early with this build. You can take this build all the way to level 100. It clears level 30 plus Nightmare dungeons pretty easily. So that would be like tier 60, 70 around my level. And tier 3s also of Infernal Hordes get cleared quite well. So it's easy to get into this build. It doesn't require any uniques except one of them uniques is very nice on it, but it's optional. You don't even need it to really clear. I will go into everything bit by bit. First of all, of course, the items. Just for the items, I will go into the tempering a little bit later. I'll first just go on the items and aspects, and then later on I'll go onto the tempering. So for your helmet, Disobedience is quite nice because we're not having that maximum armor cap yet. You could probably get the maximum armor cap just by getting something that has plus armor on your helmet, for say, or your chest piece. I don't have that, so I use Disobedience to get that extra 40%, so we're all the way up to 10k, and which is above the armor cap of 9,200. And what you really want on your helmet is cooldown reduction. That's very nice in this build. Lucky hit chance, a lot of things skill and lucky hit chance. And then for the other stat, you could just get like all res, life, something else you need in the build for more survivability. And then for your chest piece, I would say Mending Stone is quite nice just for getting the extra duration of your Earth and Bulwark, and also just being able to refresh it if you get a few hits in there. And that, along with the fact that you just need get your as much survivability as possible from your chest piece. So I would say life, all res, armor. The reason why we take all res in some pieces is because we really want to bump up our resistance to 70%. And if you don't get that, you need to get some all res from some things. There's a little bit of strings I pulled here. I'll explain it later in the tempering, but there's a reason why I have the fire resistance on there. Then for the gloves, you want Unsung Ascetics reps. This is unique, so I can't expect you to instantly get this, but if you get this around level 50 or something else, that's fine too. This one is sacred. It still works out fine. It gives a ton of levels to your Lightning Storm, and I haven't even masterworked this, so it's a great item just to have. And if you don't have something like that, I would say get a piece of gloves with like crit chance on there. Leveling to Lightning Storm is very good. Attack speed is also very good, and something like offensive things like Retaliation, Overcharged, or Rune Walker, it would go great on this piece of glove. So that's if you don't have the uniques. But if you get the uniques, they're best in slot. Just take those. Then for your pants, Spirit Bond is actually quite nice. We are taking the wolves just for the Spirit Bond because the wolves can no longer die, and they will actually share 15% of your damage, which basically means you get a 15% damage reduction, and you also have like wolves to distract the enemies a little bit, because sometimes they attack the wolves instead of attacking you, which is quite nice because you kind of want to stay distance with this build. Other for the stats, I would just say get a maximum life, get armor, all rest if you don't have that already, and just to try to get your armor and resistances up. And for your pants, you really want the survivability. If you already have all the other stats, just get willpower. It's a great stat to have if you don't have anything else on your pants. Then for your boots, same as always, you really want to get movement speed. And this time you could also get the life per second, because life per second can go for your boots and I think also your chest piece and helmet. You would get it on either your chest piece or your boots. I would say preferably your chest piece actually, because you need to get the movement speed on your boots. And if you don't have that, you need to get them somehow. So you can't get movement speed on your chest plate. So I would say boots are even better. I just take Ghostwalker because we're unstoppable for quite a long time. We have two unstoppable generators. Both are Earth and Bulwark and our Trample, so with both of them you'll be unstoppable quite a while, and 4 seconds after 25% move speed is quite nice. Unhindered, especially in Infernal Hordes, is also very nice that enemies don't block you. You have quite a large guy, so you will get blocked quite a lot of times. And of course, willpower, maximum life, a spirit per second if you're really struggling with it. I don't really need it anymore, but it is quite nice to have. Then for the weapon, I would say one main weapon, a two-handed weapon, is great, but if you want to get a one-handed weapon and offhand, it's also very great. So both options are great, but you will just get a lot more dancing bolts damage this way, and you can get some nice double damage bonuses on this because you have a two-hander. So willpower and your maximum life, you can get that on there. And a very important one actually is the life on hit. You do not need it greater affix like I have, but I do have a great affix and it works very well with our ring, and I'll get into that a little bit later as to why. Tempering, I'll get into that later too. But if you're gonna go a main hand and an offhand, I would say put the retaliation on there and put accelerating on the other one. For your amulet, you then want your lightning dancer, because lightning dancer really does a lot of damage in this build. So you really want that to be in there, and you would want that rather on your amulet than on just one of the one-handers. And of course, if you take a one-hander, same stats as you want on your main hand or like two-hander, and for your totem, you actually do want critical strike chance because you can roll that on your totem. That's very nice. And cooldown reduction. If you can get those, it's very nice. Get those and then get something like willpower or maximum life if you're still struggling a little bit with survivability. Amulet, if you really want to get that critical strike chance in there, because you can in here in this. Attack speed is also great. Cooldown reduction also great. You probably won't get all three of them, but to try to find two of those in that order. Critical strike chance, cooldown reduction, attack speed. So that's the order you want that. Tempering I'll get into later, and also accelerating is just great for more attack speed, more hits, more dancing bolts or dancing bolts, and everything is just getting better with attack speed. So really get that. Attack speed is not really that necessary if you're struggling with spirit, but it also helps with spirit generation in the beginning. So attack speed is always nice. Although at the beginning, when you're taking your wind shear, you do actually want a little bit of a difference. So when you take wind shear, you actually want calm breeze on this. Calm breeze allows your wind shear to do poisoning damage, and that can be very nice for the early game. We're just dealing a lot of poisoning damage to enemies. But until if you don't take wind shear anymore, accelerating is the way to go. Then Rune Worker, it's a bit of a debate. Rune Worker can actually be better than the other one, which is, I wrote it down somewhere. I think it's Overcharged, which does AoE damage. This one right here. Overcharged basically does AoE damage every time you hit someone, but it doesn't deal damage to the person themselves. So it's very good for AoE, but it's not really that good for single target damage. Rune Worker, on the other hand, will do a lightning bolt on them, which will deal the extra damage as well. And your Cataclysm also does lightning bolts. So these two things kind of help. And also you have a skill actually in your skill tree, or a passive skill, that will allow you to deal lightning bolt damage. So this one will also get a 40% buff. So it does have some synergy with some other stuff. I would say single target damage wise, this is a lot better. But if you want more AoE damage, I would take Overcharged. Then this is our generator, the main reason why we get a lot of our energy back or spirit back, and we don't really need any more additional generators, is the Starlight. Starlight really helps us to get energy back, spirit back. We have multiple things that actually get us health, and by that also just get us our resources back. So the main one is our main hand, the life on hit. That one gives us a lot back, and also there's another passive one that gives us 3% max life every time we hit, or every time we cast a skill. Well, we're casting Lightning Storm permanently, so we will get a lot of life back through that, and that will basically give us another like 40% resource cost reduction, because we're just constantly getting this back. And of course, if you take like a health potion or whatever, you will also gain it back. And your Blood Howl, which will generate exactly 20%, will now also generate 40 spirit. So I'll get into that later with the skills as well, what kind of interactions go there. But this is also why we take life on hit on our two-handed weapon, because we will generate us a lot of spirit just because if you get the life on hit. Of course, for the stats, attack speed, critical strike chance, very important. Critical strike chance very important because it scales with your unsung unsung aesthetic reps. I'll just call this some reps. With your reps, you basically get 40% increased damage of your critical strike, so it will cast twice. It's great. It's really good. So you really want that crit chance so you can get most out of this. So crit chance is very good. Attack speed, lucky hit chance to vulnerable is actually pretty good, especially for bosses. You can't really permanently vulnerable bosses unless you have a great lucky hit chance. So lucky hit chance and a chance to get vulnerable damage or get vulnerable on them is also quite nice. Life on hit is also possible on your rings if you do not have it on your weapon. Yeah, so Starlight's very good. Rune Worker is great, and Overcharged if you want some more AoE damage, but I don't see how you would if you have the Lightning Dancer on there. It's already clearing like crazy. So that's it for items and aspects, but tempering I want to get into right now. So there's a bit of a trick to get into World Tier 3 and World Tier 4 easily. So basically what you want to do is you want to get maximum life on your helmet, chest piece and pants. This means you will get like 1500 maximum health. And then for your gloves, amulet, rings, and weapon. No, not for your weapon. For your gloves, amulet, and rings, you just want percentage damage. I would say distant damage is great. You can also just get percentage damage just like that. It's also fine, but you just want percentage damage. And then for your weapon, you actually want the lucky hit chance to deal extra damage. This together makes it able for you to do like level 25 to go to World Tier 3 because you have more than enough health. You get 1500 health from the 3 temperings here. And also that you will get more than enough damage because of the percentage damage and also the chance to deal a lot of damage. This will just has a chance to insta-kill in World Tier 3. And in World Tier 4, you will just do this the same thing to your sacred gear and you will have a chance to deal a lot of damage as well. But your other stuff will just deal a lot of damage, and the tempering damage you will get for your amulets and all of the distant damage will really up your damage and make it able that you can actually clear World Tier 4 at around level 45-50 just before you get all of the ancient stuff or ancestral stuff, so you can ease into that very easily and keep at that plus 30 level. If the monsters are 30 levels higher than you, you get the maximum amount of XP per monster kill, and if you do this, you'll just ease into that very well and just be able to do some hell tides and stuff, so they will always be plus 30 levels. So that's it for the tempering to get into World Tier 3 and to World Tier 4 quickly. Just a quick guide. I've also made a video on it earlier, but that's just quickly how to get into it. Other things for the tempering. So you want your all res to be at around 70%. That's very important. So to get this, you want all res on 1 or 2 of your equipment pieces, depending on what you take. And you also want jewelry or a gem in one of these slots. And then for the other, let's just say, okay, I have an example here. Shadow resistance, lightning resistance, and cold resistance. I have those gems in my jewelry. And then what I take is fire resistance and poison resistance as a temper on my chest piece and my pants. Together with this, I'll have like 35% res on everything. So that's just for my gear. And with the gems and the tempering. And then you just want to get all res on some of your pieces, so you will actually fill up those other 70% that you need. You'll get some from Paragon as well, just from because you have intelligence. You also get some like 7% res. So all those things count up to 70% res. So that's very important for your tempering to get all of that. Maximum armor. You could get it just getting 2 armor rolls on there, but I would just use disobedience, so that's fine. I would say focusing on resistance first, because you can get armor through your aspects, but you can't get resistance to your aspects. So that's a very, very important distinction. Damage resistant is just a very nice thing to have on all of your things. And later on your Paragon board, you'll also gain multiplicative damage based on your distant damage, which is capped, but you want to reach that cap very soon. And also, of course, because you're putting a lot of damage distance, keep the distance between you and an enemy. That's very important. Resource curve reduction is great. Just you can get like 30% if you put it on your amulet and your 2 rings. So that's just a nice resource cost reduction to have. I'd say it's a little bit better than the chance to get back resources, just because all of the resource cost that you have is just reduced. And I don't have any spirit problems anymore. So this might even be a little bit of a flex option where you can get something else out of it. Other things, lucky hit chance to immobilize is what you would take as a second stat on your helmet, chest piece, boots, and your pants. Those are just chances to immobilize. Immobilize synergizes very well with all of your skills, so that's very nice too. And of course, on your weapon, you would want a percentage to deal damage. I just do cold. Of course, if you could get lightning, it's very much in team, but I got a max damage roll, so I was like, yeah, sure. And yeah, I think that's about it for the tempering. Then we're going to go to Spirit Boons. You have quite a few options here, but I would say this is one of the best options. If you're really struggling with resources, you could take Gift of the Stag, but I would say 15% damage reduction is very nice. You can be a bit squishy in this build if you don't have your barrier up and you get caught off guard. So the 15% damage reduction really helps. Then for the Eagle, you want to take 2. So you really want to choose, you bond with the Eagle. You 10% crit chance, that's great. And you take the 15% attack speed. We really don't have that much crit damage right now. Also not on the tempers and anything. So I would say taking this comes later. maybe in the end game, this would be very nice. You can take full advantage of that 30% multiplicative, but now it's not really that necessary. Then for your wolf boons, I would say energize is very good if you're struggling with spirit. I'm not really struggling with spirit anymore, so I could actually take calamity. So my calamity is actually on a lower cooldown. Wait, both have the... Okay, my cataclysm is on a lower cooldown. This is for your ultimate skill. It's not on a lower cooldown, but the uptime gets higher because you extended the skill by 25%. The cooldown gets lower because of the calm before the storm, which is great. If you're not really much into this, you don't really want the cataclysm part at all, overload is still great. It just does a lot of extra damage to the surrounding enemies. This is basically just like the overcharged, but then you get it through your spirit boons. Then for your abilities, how to level this exactly with your levels, like leveling up. I put that in the build planner, but I'll just go over this high over just so it takes some early notes. So wind shear, you actually want wild wind shear at the beginning because you can get the additional spirit, and don't forget you can also get that aspect which calm breeze, which will get your wind shear some extra poison damage, which will be nice in the early game. But mainly just want raging lightning storm, wild impulses for some extra damage. If you're really struggling with spirit cost, maybe this is not too good, but like 9% spirit increase is not really that much. If you get the temperings, you won't notice this at all. It's just free damage. Then I would say Earth and Bulwark. Fortify is nice because especially if you're running a retaliation, you want the fortification bonus to be max of life. Then if you're still struggling with any of your spirit generation, get innate Blood Howl, but I would say preserving Blood Howl is better. You would just get a more attack speed. For survivability, Ancestral Fortitude is basically just giving you all res, and that's 15%, which is quite nice. And Vigilance is another 21% chance defense, which is great because you're using Blood Howl every 6 seconds roughly, because you're just killing that and reducing the cooldown. We take 1 point in wolves, no other points. We don't really care about all of this wolf damage or fortification do you get through wolves. You do want Nature's Reach, that's just extra damage, 15 or 30% chance with Immobilized. This is also why we take it as tempering. Then for this you can get a lot of passive points in here. Electric Shock, extra damage if they're immobilized, which is great. We use a lot of Immobilize. Chance when they're vulnerable to deal a lightning bolt. This also scales with your Rune Worker. Rune Worker will give you 40% chance, 40% extra damage on your lightning bolts. This is great. This is just for extra Cataclysm duration. 15% is like a few extra seconds on there, so you can get the uptime a little bit higher. This is just to get enemies more vulnerable, especially bosses. You can trigger this so almost you have like a permanent uptime on the vulnerable. It's not really that well because I don't really have that much lucky hit chance yet, but the more lucky hit chance you get, the better this gets. Then Trample is pretty great just for another unstoppable. You really sometimes your Earth and Bulwark actually has a 16-second cooldown, or like 15 seconds if you have some cooldown reduction, and that means that there's 15 seconds or 9 seconds, but still 6 seconds where you're just not unstoppable, and if something stuns you, you're screwed. So this, and also just to get some mobility in there, you have Trample. It's just a kind of a dash and also just an unstoppable. You can even get some spirit back from this, but I use it just to get Fortify, so I get my Fortify bonus and get that damage reduction with the max Fortify. Then over here, Cataclysm, making lightning strikes, making enemies vulnerable is also great on bosses. 6 seconds is also quite a long time, so you won't really be struggling that much with the vulnerable stuff. Also with Exploit, which I'll show in the Paragon board later. Then Circle of Life, this is what synergizes very well with your ring, with the Starlight on your ring, because every 7 casts you basically get 40 resources back. Well, let's just see. 13 per strike, so that's 91 for 7 strikes, and you get 40 back. So that's almost a 40% or like a 40-50% resource cost reduction just because you're getting that just from the combo from the aspect, Starlight, and this. If you already have more than enough spirit, don't take this, take this. You'll get 6% extra damage. And if you're swapping it with your Earth and Bulwark, which is an Earth skill, you actually get even more damage, triple this bonus. So that's also quite nice just to have. Other than that, Natural Disasters is great, and Defiance is also great, which you will get plus from your reps. And of course at the end you would get Perfect Storm. There is actually a way where you can get like Nature's Fury, which can be pretty good because you can get Every time Nature's Fury triggers, you reduce the cooldown of your non-ultimates, which can be nice for your Trample and your Earthen Bulwark, but I would say 40% damage increase is just quite nice, so I'm gonna take that for now, and the damage is very good now. So if you're really struggling with survivability, Nature's Fury, along with the, I think it's Symbiote, you can put that on your boots. Just don't take the 25 move seed, and then you will get a lot more survivability because you're constantly proccing the -4 seconds cooldown reduction on your non-ultimate skills, which means you can get a permanent Earthen Bulwark and just spam your dash as well. That's it for skills. Paragon board, it's a very basic Paragon board. I just took this one for max roll. It's like nothing really that special. You want the exploit, which is very nice because you can get 3 seconds of vulnerable on everyone when you hit them once. Of course, on bosses you need some other stuff to actually carry the vulnerable on, but most targets are dead within 3 seconds anyway, so this is great. So just have an almost permanent vulnerable for all those enemies. Then you want to get into Ancestral Guidance for 30% damage increase. You're cycling through your spirit, so you will get this almost permanently uptime. And also your Keeper for just to get some extra damage reduction, and you want to level this one first as well, because if you level this one enough, you can actually get extra all res and extra core damage, which is great. Then in the board of Thunderstruck, this is actually why you take so much damage to distant, because you can get 60 multiplicative % damage on there extra. And you also want Territorial here for the extra damage reduction, because survivability can be a bit of a trouble. And then the full Paragon board is actually in the build plan in the description. So if you want to get even more into that one, go ahead. You can take it all the way to level 100. That's about it. I made this build to help out everyone for the early game Druid. I have my mythicals that I can equip anytime, but I really wanted to just have something that other people can also use. The one of the Lightning Storm that just fully utilizes the human form. I will also maybe make something for the other stuff, but I will do a Doomstorm build first. So I really am working towards that one, but I really wanted to make a Lightning Storm build that everyone can use, especially for the early and mid game. I think for the end game there are already some guides out there. So thanks everyone for watching, and I really appreciate all of the support you guys have been giving and like subscribing like mad crazy in the past few weeks. Season 5 has been great for me, so please subscribe if you haven't already. I stream regularly on YouTube, not on Twitch. It's just on YouTube. You will get a notification if you hit the bell button, and you know when I'm streaming. You can always ask me any questions. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.